So it's interesting because I love that you mentioned that 30-year-olds today are going through a lot more than 30-year-olds, 50 years ago. And I always laugh because my parents have never thought about a carb, a fat, or a protein, right? Because
Yeah.
it was real food. And now we've got 70% of the diet is processed food. We've got all of these toxins, fluoride, bromide, chlorine. We've got the spike protein that is triggering skin issues. I don't know if you've seen that, but I'm getting a lot of texts or emails saying, I have this rash that's coming out of nowhere. Heavy metals. In
Yeah.
my own family, I have a child who literally was tested for heavy metals and they're through the roof because of where she practices her sport. And as she's detoxing, guess what's going on? It's coming out of her skin, and it's part of the process. Because your skin is your largest detox organ. So it's not just the dysbiosis, but it's also a way to get the junk out. And can you talk about that a bit? Because this is something that is on a whole nother level than it was 20 years ago or even 4 years ago.
Yeah. Well, and I think to add to the list of things that you've mentioned, that 30-year-olds and 15-year-olds and 20-year-olds and so on are going through nowadays, that our parents' generation didn't necessarily go through, or even we didn't necessarily go through ourselves, are the isolation, the lack of outdoor exposure.
Yeah.
Right. We played in the dirt a lot more as kids, and that has a fortifying effect on our skin microbiome, and it has a fortifying effect on our gut. We were outside more as adults, even, right? Because we didn't have, of course, social media and things that kept us indoors, and yet trying to connect with people, we had to go outside in order to interact with people. And so that exposure outdoors makes a big difference. And then nowadays, even when you do go outside, like you said, there's a whole series of pollutants that are going to be entering into your system that disrupt not only your microbiome, but of course your immune system, your detox pathways, and so on. I just had, looking at the weather today, I'm in Chicago, and there's like environmental alert, right? There's the particulate matter in the air is too high, and it's high enough where it would be a problem for people with sensitive respiratory issues. So just walking outside nowadays is a risk, right? So when you think about all that, it's no surprise that our systems are dismantled, and that as a result of that, we start to see all of these inflammatory conditions becoming prevalent. Now, inflammation in the body, both in the skin and the gut and so on, can occur for two reasons, right? Number one, it's because your immune system is overreacting to things, or number two, it's because your immune system is underreacting to things, right? So there's actually both of those spectrums. So now the overreaction is a typical response that we see, and it's your immune system responding to bacteria, viruses, bacterial toxins, environmental toxins, LPS from a leaky gut, environmental particulate matter that lands on your skin, and so on. But then the underreaction can also drive inflammation, because there are parts of your immune system that get compromised when your gut microbiome isn't healthy. This is the regulatory part of your immune system. So this is called the Treg system. The Treg system's role is to teach and negate unfavorable immune responses in your body. So when your immune system inevitably reacts to something it shouldn't, like environmental particles or your own, skin cells or your own proteins, the Treg system is going to deregulate those responses and teach your immune system, hey, you shouldn't do that, right? So psoriasis and eczema that you mentioned, both of those are considered to be autoimmune conditions, right? That is your own immune system attacking your skin cells from underneath. Now, why is it doing that? Well, there's a trigger on the surface of the skin. So the Staph aureus, which is a type of pathogenic organism has been known to be colonized in areas of the skin where you end up with psoriasis or eczema or many forms of dermatitis, really. Dermatitis just meaning inflammation of the skin. So what's happening is that microbe is sitting there on a given part of your skin. It's taking over the population in that area. It starts to produce certain toxins like phenols. These toxins create an immune reaction in that area, and your immune system comes along and goes, hey, there's something bad here. We're going to react to it to protect the host. But because the T regulatory system is not functioning properly, and that has to do with gut dysbiosis and leaky gut, what happens, your immune system shows up to that area and just starts attacking everything in that area. It doesn't necessarily know what it's attacking. It just knows there's something there. It knows there's a trigger there. So it just starts attacking things. So it's starting to break down your collagen, your elastin fibers, your ceramide layer, which maintains the moisture in that area. It's breaking down your actual skin cells. This is why you get the redness, the itching, the rash, the really severe dryness in that area, because the structures of the skin are actually being attacked by your own immune system, right? So this is a combination of having the wrong microbe on the surface, triggering the wrong immune response from your gut to your skin because your gut is also dysbiotic, and the lack of function of the regulatory part of the immune system to stop all of those unfavorable responses, right? So it's a combination of things that occur. It's the same thing that occurs in acne. Acne is often triggered by a bacteria called Cutibacterium acnesis. A lot of people who have acne will tend to have an overgrowth of that bacteria. That bacteria can get in the pores. When the pores clog up, and these individuals will typically produce higher levels of sebum, so then the pores get clogged up. This anaerobic environment where this pathogen is can trigger an inflammatory response. The immune system comes along, and like any other unfavorable immune response, there's too much inflammation being created. The sebaceous glands, in response to that immune system, produce even more sebum, and then they produce like a little mound called a comedone, which is really what the acne lesion is, right? So now you can have acne popping up all over your face, but that's triggered by dysbiosis on the skin and a combination of dysbiosis in the gut that leads to a dysfunctional immune response. That combination creates lots and lots of problems, including dismantling some of the detox pathways, messing up how lymph flows through your system, allowing too much moisture to escape your skin because that inflammation is breaking down your ceramide layer. And because it breaks down the ceramide layer, and for people that aren't familiar, your ceramide layer is this really nice fatty acid layer right in your epidermis, in the bottom part of your epidermis. This fatty acid layer basically acts as a physical barrier, keeping moisture from going out because oil and water don't mix, right? So it traps water in your skin, keeping you moisturized. And it also prevents toxins because a lot of toxins are oil soluble. It prevents toxins from penetrating through and entering into circulation. If that ceramide layer gets broken up, then what happens is you get a lot of moisture loss through the skin, through evaporation, and you get your skin drying out and forming wrinkles, and your elastin and collagen fibers that are supposed to be taut like this, they become dysfunctional and they start bending, right? They don't spring back. So when you frown or you make any facial expressions, what's supposed to happen is those lines form, but they spring back, right? Imagine over the time, if they don't spring back, the lines create permanent creases. So then you see all these fine lines all over the place. All of that also then means that the barrier is not functioning. So then toxins not only can land on your skin, but penetrate through and enter into circulation that can create massive inflammation throughout the body. So when I talk about skin and the importance of skin, I'm not just talking about the cosmetic things that we're all concerned about, right? We don't want to age our skin. We don't want inflammation and all that. I'm talking about skin beyond that as a component of our health and wellness system, and a big driver of chronic disease and dysfunction if it's allowed to become leaky, and it starts with dysbiosis.
So essentially, with leaky gut, like if you have a really strong gut integrity and you eat a bad meal, and then someone with leaky gut has that same meal, they're going to have a worse response because the first person has a strong barrier to protect them and to process the bad food. So
Yeah.
it's the same with the skin, where if I'm being attacked by heavy metals in the air, or, jet fuel is coming down on me, or I'm breathing in some really, the smog or whatever you are experiencing in Chicago today. If you've got leaky skin, you're going to have a worse reaction than someone that has a really strong barrier. Correct?
That's absolutely right. So think about it this way as well. Imagine the barrier of your skin is compromised, which means, and that ceramide layer that I mentioned is in the epidermis, right? So that's a top layer of your skin, and it's there for a reason, because we don't want stuff penetrating beyond that top layer, right? Remember that a lot of the top layer of your skin is actually dead skin cells, and they're there specifically to act like little bricks that are piled up, right? So that it makes it harder for things to penetrate through. And then beyond that layer of dead skin cell bricks, if you will, there's a ceramide layer. So if that ceramide layer is compromised and your skin is leaky, what happens is the toxins leak further into the dermis, where you have a lot of lymphatics, circulation and blood circulation and immune function and all that. So someone with a strong barrier on their skin could walk through outside the way it is right now, and all these irritants might fall on your skin, but they remain on the top layer, thereby not triggering any sort of immune responses. When you shower later on today, they're just going to wash off and it's fine. If someone has a leaky barrier on the skin, it's going to go in further. That's going to trigger an immune response. Those individuals are going to get redness, irritation, scratching, itching on their skin. They're going to feel the symptoms of being outside in unhealthy air. Now, on top of that, those individuals, if they have the leaky gut, like you said, that they would typically have even more of an inflammatory response, because leaky gut leads to systemic unfavorable inflammatory responses, right? So that individual will have a double whammy, where not only is the incoming offensive compound triggering a localized inflammation, your gut is going to send a bunch of dysfunctional immune cells to that area that'll further damage the skin and other components of your own system in that given area.